Hello, everyone. It's Shane Conto, your Wasteland reviewer, and welcome to Wasteland Talks, my talk show where I talk about whatever the hell I want. And back on again for some more album analysis. We got Alex, we got Jim,
Hey,
the Wasteland reviewer YouTube channel music experts, as I will now call them for moving forward. And we're going to be talking about Alex's pick, Californication by Red Hot Chili Peppers, which I know for me personally was one of the 6 CDs that my mom had in her Ford F-150 that we listened to all the time. So like 8-year-old and 9-year-old Shane knew every single one of these songs
damn.
because I listened to it so much. But I guess that's a nice place to start. So, Alex, where did you first come to this album?
So 12-year-old Alex hears Under the Bridge, which is from Blood Sugar Sex Magic. And 12-year-old Alex is heartbroken because he wanted to ask a girl to dance and he chickened out and didn't ask her to dance. And so he heard Under the Bridge. And for him, for me, that was like a aha moment. Like it just kind of reached out and grabbed me. At that same time, when I was 12, I was in sixth grade, that's when Californication came out. So I went out and bought Blood Sugar Sex Magic, fell in love with it. And then, of course, I had to buy this. Scar Tissue was the big song on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw the video for Around the World and I dug that. And so this album, that's how the album came to me. But without a doubt, it's got to be the most inspiring album for me that I ever listened to. And that's one of the reasons why I chose this one.
Mm-hmm.
Was because when I was sitting in my kitchen drinking a beer and I thought, okay, which one am I going to choose? I could choose a David Bowie thing. I could choose a Neil Young thing. I'm like, I'm just going to go with my heart here and pick Californication because there's something really special about this album that keeps coming back for me. And for the longest time, I would have said Blood Sugar was my favorite. And I still have a hard time not saying that. But I have to say, I think this has kind of moved into the number one spot for me of their albums that I really love, and it was definitely the most inspiring in the projects that I've been in recently and the songs that I worked on. And yeah, it's just, there's a sound and a feel and a vibe and a thing about this album that's really kind of wonderful. There's a darkness to it. There's a vibrance to the tone of it. And there's also fun. There's also still enough fun in it that got carried over from the 1980s Red Hot Chili Peppers. So I think it's a beautiful album and I really love it. And so, yeah, that's really, it keeps coming back. It keeps finding its way back.
Just a quick little side note. If you want to have some more fun, you can listen to Yertle the Turtle by Red Hot Chili Peppers. Because there was a time I had all their CDs and I'm just like, what is this?
I know. That's a weird song.
They definitely had a lot of fun.
Skinny Sweaty Man. Don't forget about Skinny Sweaty Man.
Yeah. Yertle the Turtle. And it's just like, yep. That's how you really rock out. Is doing some Dr. Seuss. How about you, Jim? How did you come about the album?
So I know we've talked about radio before on this show, and I think there were 3 singles from this album. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they were 4 singles. Probably all 4 of them were. I was just inundated with them, and I listened to a lot of rock radio, but like they were so excited for this album to come out. They just played it. They played the shit out of it for years. And these are some of those Scar Tissue, Californication, other side. Is that on this? Did we just listen to that song?
Mm-hmm.
Around the World, maybe less so. I'm guessing that was the 4th single.
Believe it or not, Around the World was the 2nd single. Other Side was the 3rd, and Californication was the 4th.
Wow.
Buried lead.
Yeah.
Just like,
right.
Well,
yeah.
At the end.
But there were I think half this album, more or less, I'd never heard before, listening to it for this conversation. So That was cool. The sound is the same. It's what you'd expect from Rick Rubin. It's very consistent. It's very polished. It's very, um, what's the word for it? It sounds good. You know, it's not rough. But all these guys are really, you don't expect them to hit any like wrong notes, even if you see them live, right? So like, I'm not. It's not that I would expect it to be rough, but this is, this is the pop. This is full pop mode. I feel like for Red Hot Chili Peppers, right? Highlights for me were Purple Stain and Right on Time. I was very pleasantly surprised by that little. There's a lot of energy there. There's a lot of punk rock energy that I wasn't expecting from this album. And are we gonna do deep tracks later? Should I just hold on?
Oh, you could do it all and whenever you want, because that's.
I would say Velvet Glove, man, because it sounds like a single. Velvet Glove sounds like a single to me.
It is.
And I'd never heard it before today.
It was never released.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we can jump straight to that if you want, because anybody who says they hate the Red Hot Chili Peppers, they're not into they don't get it, whatever. That's the first song I would show them. Is this Velvet Glove. That is the first one I would show, because nobody talks about it. Every once in a while, somebody will bring it up. It's never going to get played on the radio. You're not going to hear it unless somebody like shows it to you. And that's a very special. That's my favorite song on the album, actually. Yeah.
So I just pulled up the lyrics. I only listened first. I didn't look at any of the lyrics to these songs, but I did kind of I wasn't sure if it was creepy or sweet. Maybe you could weigh in starting there. Is the Velvet Glove a creepy tune or no?
I've never thought about it as creepy.
Let me read to you. Okay, Close to My Skin. Someone who's been, I'm a falling in. So that could just be like I want to be close to you kind of a thing, you know, seduction. John says to live above hell, my will is well. Long to be with someone to tell I love your smell. I think that was the line that stuck with me. I was like, I love your smell.
Right. He talks about on Porcelain. He also says, do you smell like a girl when you smile? I think he's talking about a girlfriend that he had at the time. I think her name was Johanna. She was like a short-haired blonde chick that he was dating in the late 90s. But I think he's all, close to my skin. I'm falling into someone who's been, I think there's there's definitely some heroin imagery there. Close to my skin, I'm falling into someone I'm left alone in another zone. It's such a waste to be wasted in the first place. There's a lot, I think he's going back to the addiction, and he was clean through blood sugar, and then he relapsed for one hot minute in the mid 90s, and then he got clean again, and then he relapsed again, and he was going back and forth, during this album. And so there's a lot of dark energy, like parallel universe, I'm a California king, I swear it's everywhere. It's everything, he's talking about, I think he's talking about drugs, I think he's talking about like, I can't not think about this. And so I definitely think that plays a role in that song, this Velvet Glove. But there's definitely a lot of times it's the drug and the woman that he loves. It sounds like he's taking those two things and he's like kind of wrapping them around each other.
This is actually a very personal song, Velvet Glove. It seems like he's referencing John, I'm guessing, for Shanti.
That's what I always thought. I always assumed. And, I have to say, it's funny. Until I read the lyrics out of the book you gave me, Shane, I always thought it was John says to live up a hill, like the Hollywood Hills. I will as well, but it's obviously above hell. So, but I think that's a much better line. Live above hell.
Yeah, one of my experiences, because like I went through and was looking up the lyrics to all these songs, because like I've listened to these songs so many times, and I just know what they sound like, and then it's just looking at them, just like, that is not what I picked up listening to this song. But they have a decent amount of variety in terms of like the musicianship that they bring to a lot of these songs. Because like, you have songs with like a lot of them are like big thumping, a lot of fun kind of things, like, you know, like you mentioned, like I Like Dirt, and then Purple Stain. And I know for me, like right off the bat, right up, like Around the World just comes like shooting at you. And
that bass, man, that freaking distorted bass to start that, you know, is just, he's a monster. He's a complete monster.
yeah, and it's like, wow, you never would have thought that actor Flea could actually do all this.
And now, come on, man, give it up for Will Ferrell on drums, man.
Yes.
Come on, dude. He can really.
But I think the song that always stuck out to me, and I have a funny story about this song too, because my mom had the CD to this, and I would put it on my computer to put on my Zune that I had at one point, and then my iPod. And for some reason, there was a fault in the CD, and the name of the song was Parallels Universe. Like it replaced the last L with a Z, and I'm just like, I don't think that's right. Funny. But like, I just love the like coming in hot with that bass, and just like the whole entire time.
Yeah.
And Flea's just laying it down, and I absolutely love that song.
I think he's got to be using a pick on that song. He's got it's too fast. It's too freaking fast. I could be wrong, but he's got to be using it, at least in the studio. It's just it's way too fast. So it's
a lot of that slap of the bass.
There was another song on the record too that I was like, wow, he's playing really fast, or picking really fast. I don't know that I could pull it out right off the top of my head, but yeah, Flea is like, he's a machine, man. You can't replace him. Would you say, Alex?
It's Right on Time, maybe.
It might have been Right on Time.
Could have been.
It might have been the one.
It could have been that one, but yeah. Yeah. Did you guys have a chance to listen to the instrumental that I sent?
I liked the instrumental a lot. Yeah, I was playing it. I listened to like 2 minutes of it before I jumped on the Zoom call.
Yeah. I mean,
I really enjoyed what I heard. Yeah.
I mean, talk about how consistent Flea and Chad are, you know, with digga, like he doesn't miss a beat the entire time. And, you know, and John Frusciante is not doing very much, but what he does is just like, it just like lasers you in the face. Like, and to me, you spoke a little bit, Jim, about like, this is very polished. And yes, because Rick Rubin is, all his stuff's very polished, but I do feel like there's some raw elements of this album. There's an emptiness to a lot of the guitar tones. Californication, the song, is a good example. That guitar solo, there's something really hollow and empty and bordering on thin. You know, a lot of guitar players don't want to sound thin. But there's some, he actually lets himself be a little thin in some of these like lead parts in these solo sections, because there really is like, you know, something thin about and raw about the sound on this album. But the songwriting is obviously very like well thought out and structured. So it didn't, for me, it didn't sound like, despite the fact that it was the CD era and it was being, the volume was being like pressed up and mastered very, very well, there's still something raw about this album to me, you know, at least in the players.
It's interesting because I remember first hearing Californication on like MTV with that ridiculous video game music video that they had to this, and like I will never forget that. That was like one of the most memorable music videos I think I've ever seen. But I looked up the lyrics on Genius, and like they had some like comments and stuff like that. And at one point, like obviously it's on the internet, so this is 100% true. But like it had a quote from Anthony Kiedis talking about how like the guitar wasn't fully there on this album because like he was coming back from like a hiatus from the band, and like he wasn't quite there yet.
He
Right.
nearly killed
Frusciante
him.
didn't play on the previous album, correct?
No, he didn't play on. He played on Blood Sugar, but he didn't play on One Hot Minute.
Right.
Yeah,
And
it's a
then
very
like
different album.
and like mentioning because like he played on what Stadium Arcadium, I'm assuming. Yeah, so
Yeah.
like and they mentioned like by that time he felt like fully back into it because like
So let me.
how many years after that is that?
So let me.
An album between.
I do have to say, because Frusciante was still doing solo stuff, you
Mhm.
know, in the mid to late 90s, but he almost died. He lost all his teeth because he got so addicted to heroin. He was trying to find spots in his foot to shoot up, you know, like he was looking for like, you know, it was bad. He
I didn't
almost
know
died.
Frusciante ever got that bad, really?
He got bad after he left the band. After
Wow.
he left the band in 92, he went into a major heroin binge, you know, and they did a whole like small, like short film on it, like showing him just like smoking cigarettes and like walking around his apartment, you know, surrounded by his own squalor. And like, it was bad. It was really bad. Like about as bad as it gets, you know?
Train spotting bad.
Yeah. Yes. And so, but he continued to make very like weird music, and then he still played guitar. And I think what you're referring to, and I could be wrong, but you know, on the song Californication, the guitar was not, it was one of those few moments like Under the Bridge where Anthony had the lyrics before there was any music. And that's one of the reasons I shared the instrumental, is because most of what Anthony does is put like rap and scat and like lyrical ideas over stuff that Flea and John and Chad have already kind of put together, you know? And so, but with Californication and then 8 years earlier with Under the Bridge, the lyrics came first. And John Frusciante had to kind of figure out, how am I gonna, what sort of progression can I put together to put these lyrics to? And so it's only happened 2 or 3, maybe 4 times in the band's history, and it just happens to be like 2 of their biggest songs that happened on. Californication being one of them. But I shared the instrumental because there's a lot of like stirring the pot and stewing that goes on with these 3, especially those 2, John and Flea, even before, you know, Anthony gets the recordings to put the lyrics over, you know.
It's interesting that you point that out because they definitely sound that way. And like Californication doesn't. It sounds like a lot of the other songs sound like they're really like just going at it, and like the singing along with it seems like it's singing along with it.
Yes.
And that's interesting because I never really thought about that.
And there's I have an interesting comment about Californication. I never thought about that specifically to the music, the way you just said it. But the funny thing is, you know, Californication is the song that I always want to skip over when I listen to this album. But it's similar to what I said about Like a Stone when we talked about Audio Slave.
Exactly.
Right? You know, like the album, you can't have it without that song. In a way, it's not the same album without that song. You know, I enjoy listening to it apart from the record more than with the record sometimes, but it's almost like putting it right at track 6. It's almost like the end of that A side, right? It's like the end of, these are the hits, and it literally is the end of the singles. No more singles after that. It's just everything else after that. So, you know, but it has that very similar to Like a Stone, where it was kind of like, if you take that track out of there, as much as you might be sick of hearing it, the album's just not the same, you know. But it is a very different song, it compared to the way they approached it and the way it feels compared to the rest of the record.
Do you know if they were going for hits with this? Because I know earlier in their career, similar to like Nirvana, they didn't want to be famous. They weren't really trying to be famous. I know for Shanti, kind of, he didn't like playing the stadium venues that they were hitting after Blood,
Yeah.
Sex, Magic.
Yeah.
But were they, once they realized Under the Bridge hit a chord with people, was Californication like a conscious follow-up? Because the tone is a little more similar. They let go a lot of the goofier shit that they were doing earlier in their career. Like you said, like the funk is still there in the instrumental. I mean, you could still hear like the funk is still there. There's a lot of different musical influences, but the tone of the album tells me that he's got more to say now, like at this point in his life. But like, were they trying to hit a #1 single with Californication? I have no idea if they were consciously trying to write a hit or not at this point in their career, you know?
I feel like the radio hit, like the one that feels a lot more like intentional with Scar Tissue to me, you know, whereas I could be wrong. I feel like for me, Californication feels like a happy accident. And I think that's why it all, like I said, there's this stiltedness about that song for me. It almost feels just a little forced, you know, and some people hate it, but it's still getting played everywhere. But
that might be part of the reason. They're just sick of hearing it, you know?
Yeah. I feel like radio culture has affected music so much because like I don't listen to the radio. Just to put that out there, ever since I went to college, I stopped listening to the radio because one, you're in the middle of a dead zone in Lawrenceville, New Jersey, because you start losing all the Philly stations and then you don't get any other ones. And you're just like, well, I grew up on all the Philly stations and I'm just like, well, this sucks. So then I just stopped listening to the radio and also prefer not to listen to commercials and stuff like that. So I do my own thing. I have Spotify now. I had Amazon Music. But, you know, I love MMR, but like sometimes like Jess, my wife, listens to the radio. So when I'm driving with her and she radio surfs all the time because it's just like the second Pink Floyd comes on and I'm ready to like jam out and she's like, nope. It's like she can't listen to anything anymore.
Sure.
Like I think the only song recently, because they had a block party weekend this weekend and they had like Run Like Hell, which like doesn't get played on the radio a whole lot, but you know, Comfortably Numb and like, just nope, we're not listening to this. And I feel like, you know, Californication 100% had to be that song that got played a lot.
That's the interesting thing, man, because and I'm glad I brought up, you know, you brought up, oh, it was Californication's second. No, it was the fourth. Similar to Can't Stop on By the Way. Can't Stop was the fourth single. Don't quote me on that. Maybe it was the third. But no, it was the fourth. It was the fourth. And the reason that's important is because in both cases, Can't Stop wasn't written until the very end of By the Way. They didn't actually write and record the song until the very end. Mm-hmm. Californication was this thing that they kind of had to piece together with some lyrics and some not really quite sure what the chords were. So I think there was some hesitancy about like releasing those singles who are like, and they ended up being two of their biggest songs.
It was the music video.
Yeah. Yeah. But you know, the thing, and side note about Pink Floyd, I know that the kids that I work with, the kids I basically provide guitars, amps for, then they do most of the musicking. They're playing a song called Have a Cigar by Pink Floyd.
From Wish You Were Here.
I never heard that song before until that song is brilliant.
There's only 5 tracks on that whole album.
Yeah, that song is freaking brilliant. And I've never really liked Pink Floyd, but now I'm hearing stuff that I had never heard before, and I'm like, ooh, I really like this, you know. And I think that's the same thing with a lot of these great bands. It's like radio they just kill you with the same stuff. I don't know, maybe if I heard some deep cuts from Van Halen, I wouldn't hate Van Halen, you know. But I say that I tell everybody I hate Van Halen, you know, because I hear Jump and their version of whatever the hell David Lee Roth, you know. So
I feel like,
But I'll still crank up that guitar solo every time I hear it, and then
Yes.
I'll click it off.
You turn right, exactly.
it's funny because every time, what is it, Beat It comes on the radio when Jess is listening, I'm like, Eddie. Just like him shredding with Michael Jackson. But like,
That's awesome. Yeah.
and this was my first Chili Peppers album that I ever listened to, because like, I guess from some context, because outside of like my mom having like, so this was basically the CDs that were in her truck: Californication, Supernatural by Santana, which is why I could sing along to all those songs and have no idea what the hell they're saying because most of it's in Spanish. And then she had 2 different Wallflowers albums and 2 different Matchbox 20 albums and Goo Goo Dolls. So like that was me driving around when I was a kid. And then, but when I was in my grandpa's car, he only listened to 98.1 WOGL in Philadelphia, which at that time was 60s and 70s Motown soul and rock and roll. And like rock and roll, there's like, it didn't go past like Creedence and Billy Joel. So like it didn't get like heavy or anything new, obviously. So it was, I think when I went to college, and it was the Princeton Record Exchange's fault, because I went there, I'm like, oh my God, all these cheap CDs. And then I just grew a massive collection, and I started album collecting for certain band. Like I got all of Red Hot Chili Peppers CDs. And that's why I know what Yertle the Turtle is. But like, I feel like growing up when I did, obviously I knew Californication, I knew Stadium Arcadium, because like if you didn't hear Danny California pop up somewhere, like you're probably not listening to the radio. And
I feel so. I don't want to talk about Danny California and Stadium came to us. We're here to talk about Californication, but I will say I felt, and still kind of feel about Danny California the way some people might feel about Californication. It felt a little very contrived to me. I like the song a lot more now, but at the time, this Chili Pepper fan did not like that song at all. So I did not like Danny California. I felt really forced to me. Love the album, but
is this your favorite track on the album though, Californication?
California. Oh, my favorite track on the album.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to go with This Velvet Glove. That is my favorite track on the album. This Velvet Glove is definitely my favorite. And I just like the album as a whole. Like if you took I Like Dirt and songs like that and just had them like released as like B-sides or something, nobody would care about them.
Mm-hmm.
But I think because of the way they're positioned and because they were part of this whole thing that they put together, I just love listening to them in that order, So but I would say that I have to say, no, This Velvet Glove is a special one. That's a special one. I got nothing. I love the lyrics in Californication. Like there's something, I don't know, kind of timeless about the way he put those lyrics together. And maybe that's why they insisted on turning it into a song. I do think that those lyrics are kind of very memorable. It's one of those, Californication, the song is one of those songs that finds its way to me. I'm usually not looking for it. It finds its way over to me. And then I kind of get into it. But I prefer Other Side and Scar Tissue and Around the World. I thought those were the better singles, for me. Even at the time, I was like, Californication is not my jam,
If Around the World came on the radio, I might still crank that one up. Because things do, I don't know what they do. There's some kind of mix. It just sounds louder, bigger on the radio.
Oh, really? Than on like
a CD.
Loud.
No, there's something they do. I don't know if they give a special mix to the radio or what, but it does. Like you'll notice it if you listen to Around the World rocks pretty hard. If you listen to that like on CD and then you heard it on the radio, you'd be like, oh, my car speakers are just that much better. There's something in the mix, and I can't explain it to you because I don't know, but.
And the crazy thing is, Flea holds it down so much in that song. And I guess I could prove myself wrong. I've got the tabs right here, but a lot of what's going on that, he's doing so much there. John is basically. That's pretty much all he's doing during that verse. And then the chorus is. Very simple, really just, and he's not doing a whole lot there. So, and it's a lot of Flea and Chad, but there is something sonic, really raised into your ears with that.
If you want rhythm, listen to the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yes,
because it's just that rhythm section just coming at you.
And at the school I work at, all the teachers, none of them love the Chili Peppers. They like the Chili Peppers, but they always, that rhythm section. That rhythm section. That's what they always say, and I guess it's, that's it. I think it's because they really put a lot of time just sweating into melding the instruments together, the guitar and the bass, melding those instruments so that they play off each other really, really well. The songs would not be the same if they didn't get in the garage or the studio or whatever the hell it is and just fight it out with their instruments over and over again, but they're really, that's the thing, I give Flea a lot of credit on Around the World because it's a lot of him. It's just a lot of him, just boom, boom, boom. He's an animal. He's an animal on every one of their albums. He's an animal on every one. He's an animal on this album too. He really is.
My favorite song on here is Parallel Universe. I love that song. And from obviously the bass is just coming in hot and fast. But I also love when it hits the chorus and Anthony Kiedis is just ripping into the lyrics and they're aggressive. And
that might be the most aggressive he ever got. In terms of at a time when there was a lot of heavy music, coming out, right? Right after that into the early 2000s, that might be the heaviest and certainly the most aggressive Anthony ever sounded, and the way he delivered the vocals. There's songs like Suck My Kiss and Sir Psycho Sexy where he's aggressive as almost in a rapping, very aggressive sexual type of song. Both of those songs are aggressive sexual songs, but this is I'm trapped, I'm in trouble, I'm lashing out.
He's when he starts screaming out, I'm a sidewinder, I'm a California king, and just ripping through him, just
yeah, absolutely. There's some sarcasm being thrown in there. I'm a California king. Yeah, what a throne, what a throne, motel sign, a neon motel sign, where I go to shoot up heroin. There's some sarcasm in that. And there's definitely, there's a lot of darkness there.
Yeah. And
I really enjoy the tightness of the instruments on that tune. But like I said, I hadn't looked at the lyrics. So he's singing when he says, I'm a sidewinder, I'm a California king. It's like a play on words to a mattress where he's shooting up and getting high. Is that what's going on in the lyrics?
I didn't think about that, but that's oh shit, that's pretty good. I don't know if he I'm not sure if he thought about that. If he thought you're giving him a lot of credit.
That's what I thought you were just saying a minute ago.
Well, and taking shots at the hollowness of Hollywood. I love Purple Stain too. And that whole entire part in the song where he just the chorus is because we all live in Hollywood with Dracula and Darla Hood, unspoken words were understood, and just have a lot of fun with that song, but also being like, yeah. You know what's so funny is like you're doing that right now. Every time you start talking about a song, and I'm just thinking about it in my head, I'm like just going along with the lyrics. Because
Right.
like this album is infectious to me.
Yes.
Like so the last couple that we talked about, I listened to probably like 3-4 times before over the course of like a week or two before we recorded. This one I just listened to today because like I listened to this album so much, but then I listened to it on my drive to work and my drive home, and that covered the album. Because like realistically, like my round trip is about an hour, so like I can listen to most albums in a round trip from work to back. And now I'm just like, yep, they're all sitting in my head. And they will be for a while now, just thumping away.
I like that in Purple Stain we get like a reprise of that. I don't know if maybe I was just looking for like points of reference, right? But it kind of sounded like it's not a breakdown. It's more like a wind up of Around the World, where Kiedis is screaming and the guys are rocking out. They do a very, very similar thing in Purple Stain. So to me, it was like kind of a reprise. And it was also hearing it for the first time, which was nice because Around the World has been so overplayed in my head. Didn't realize it was such a raunchy song, though. These lyrics are oof.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you mean like sexually?
Yes, very sexual.
Yes. You're always going to find, especially with like 80s and 90s Chili Peppers. You probably find it in the 2000s, but it's much more like prevalent in the 80s and 90s.
I feel like it was a lot more explicit in the 80s too, because like, what are you getting at with
party on your baby?
Like you have songs like "Suck My Kiss" and Blood
Sugar
Sex Magic.
I want to party on your
baby. I wonder what they're talking about. And you know what? It's funny. Like, so little PSA here. And what really grinds my gears is when people complain about like the smut in today's music and stuff like that. And, you know, people talking about rap music and stuff like that. And it's just dirty and yada, yada, yada. I'm like, and you're all the same boomers that'll sit there and listen to AC/DC and not realize that literally half of their songs just like
my boss is telling me one of his favorite Deep Purple songs is called something about the back door. It's like, should I let him in the back door or should I look that? Yeah, and he's like, can you take a guess what this song is about? Yes, I can. I have an idea what this song is about.
And it's like, like everybody's like, I love You Shook Me All Night Long. I'm like,
yeah,
about a booty call. Like that music video is walking across in London, picking up the fish and chip truck, heading over to his lady's place and knocking him out with those American thighs. It's like, no shit.
Right.
It's just like, and big balls. Anybody?
Yeah, I used to laugh when I heard that song. Anymore, it's like
you should laugh when you listen to it because it's silly.
I think. I mean, that's just that freaking song is ridiculous. I mean, I don't know. Look, I mean, people are. That's the thing, and they never got a whole lot of shade, for that. I think because musicians always respected them and the Chili Peppers, but they were also, especially at this time, remember, they're coming into the 90s when they get big. They're leaving the era of hair metal. She's my, cherry pie era, Poison, Guns N' Roses, and and then you get into the late 90s and, you have the grunge era, which kind of like puts a slight pause, on like, hey, like sexualizing and all that stuff. You get into.
You're too busy being depressed.
Remember, right. Well, remember Thong Song by Cisco. Remember like Jay-Z, Big Pimpin', and like I mean, like you kind of get into like, stuff like that. And once again, if those are the only songs you listen to from those artists, and that's all you saw, but the Chili Peppers weren't releasing, Sir Psycho Sexy as a single. They were releasing The Bridge. They're not releasing probably the most sexual song off of Californication, Purple Stain, or
probably, yeah, I think so.
Something, one of those like Purple Stain or I Like Dirt. There's references to sex.
Buried deep on the B side.
Yeah, so they're not releasing those as a single. So that's not just the image. Now their image isn't about sex. Now their image is about brotherhood, surviving, the death of one of their members, funk, alternative rock, like now their image is based in those things and not just sex. Sex becomes like a secondary or tertiary thing to their image.
These guys were very rock and roll from the beginning, like the drugs and the sex and the gym sock and the I don't know if people were as scandalized by the Peppers as they were by like Tool or Rage Against the Machine. Like F you, I won't do what you tell me is a lot more in your face than I don't know, Suck My Kiss or something like that. They're also not trying to bring down the system, which might help.
No, they're not as political. And they've had some political songs. I don't think we get any on this record. I don't think we get any political songs on this record. But if they had political songs, they were buried. They were always.
I feel like it's more like a cultural commentary on this of like California life and like Hollywood and stuff like that, and like a lot of the hollowness of it, but not anything like big issue kind of stuff. And a lot of bands could easily just skate through their career without having to confront any of those things. Because, like, bring up AC/DC again, I'm pretty sure if you pick any AC/DC song, they're made about one of three things: evil things, rock and roll, or sex. That's it. You could probably find one or two that weren't, but basically all of them.
Yeah.
Just about those three things. They keep it simple. And you know what? That's carried them. They have the second highest selling album in the history of music. Behind
which one's that?
Back in Black.
Back in Black.
Figured, yeah.
It's behind Thriller.
And which one?
Thriller.
Oh, Michael Jackson.
Yep.
Oh, really? Yeah. I'm sorry, Shan. I'm done with the song Back in Black. I'm just done with that song.
Back in Black. What's funny was when I was at my Hailstorm concert, you know how they play music in between acts at like venues like that. Every in between, because there's two opening acts, the Pretty Reckless, Hailstorm. So they had like multiple sections of just playing music, at least two AC/DC songs every single break. And when Back in Black came on, I'm like, well, there it is.
There it is.
So, but it's interesting because like I think the last album of Red Hot Chili Peppers that I really regularly listened to was what the hell's the name of it? It's the white one with the fly on it and the little pill.
I'm with you.
Yeah, that was the last one that I like regularly listened to. Mm-hmm. And like you could even tell by that album, a lot of the music sounds a lot tamer. Because like there isn't as many like songs where you could tell they're just like jamming like crazy.
Sure.
And they mellow out.
So two things on that. One, so now he's a father by that point. Mm-hmm. So he's probably not rolling around in the bushes quite as much. Although he did date, I think, a 19 or 20-year-old model, or like right before that album.
Like any good
dated and broke up with like a 20-year-old model at that time. Which I'm not going to throw any shade at him. I guess that's what LA people are going to do, LA things. But, Meet Me at the Corner is the song that's about that breakup, I think. But that album, Flea tries his best to take over with piano, because there's no more John Frusciante on that album. That Josh Klinghoffer takes over for guitar. John left the band the second time, and it's not a bad album. It's not bad. Some people love it. It's just obviously Josh hasn't come into his own, and you feel the loss of John Frusciante. And so that's another thing I'm glad you brought up. I'm with you, because I like some of the stuff they did without John. I really liked The Getaway. I was a big underdog fan of The Getaway, but I'd be a liar if I said that The Getaway was better than Unlimited Love or Californication. I'd be a complete liar. I like The Getaway. I think Unlimited Love is significantly better than both I'm With You and The Getaway. Just my opinion. And it's because you have John Frusciante back in the fold. That there was obviously something incredibly significant and important to his, contributions. Mm-hmm. But I think that's part of it, Shane. It's I'm not sure. I think by Stadium Arcadium, I'm not sure if his son is born yet, but he's getting there. He's getting to a place of he could still have songs like Humpty Bump, or but he's about to become a father, so he's not sleeping with every, in the 80s with the sock thing. I mean, they were the stories are they were rolling around with people every week, and playing all these different playing at strip clubs and stuff like that, so you get a completely different, and that also relates to, sorry, I'm rambling, but that also relates to, remember when this guy was 10 or 11 years old, his father was allowing prostitutes and out of work actresses to walk around the house naked, smoking weed and stuff. This is where this guy is coming from. This is what this guy grew up around. And so that's where there's, all those sexual songs that you get in the 80s and 90s with zero restraint. That's kind of where it's coming from, and I
kind of want to read that autobiography he wrote, Scar Tissue. I've never heard any of those stories, but that sounds highly intriguing to me.
It was, it was a really good biography. He even said he kind of regretted putting that out. He said, I think he felt like he showed a little too much of his rib cage with it, but since it's out there, I recommend getting it. It's pretty wild, some wild stuff in there. So yeah, no, it's cool. But I think I hope that kind of helps provide some context as to all the sex stuff, leading into a tamer era.
I noticed at least 2 references to marriage on this album. I kind of thought he was getting married at this point.
Californication, right? In the song, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Marry me, girl, be my fairy to the world, be my very own constellation. Yeah.
Around the World, I think, has another one, Be My Wife or something like that, he says.
Yeah. You said, and you say I do.
Take a wife because life is beautiful. That's the lyric.
Life is beautiful, right? Yeah. Exactly.
So I kind of thought he was ready to settle down at this point. I didn't realize.
I think he's been searching for that his whole life. And the ironic thing, I'm not sure if he ever got married. I know he had a child. It's still to this day. I could be wrong. I'm not a paparazzi type of person. So, because but.
Just ew.
Yeah, despite being a rock star and the king of cool in a way, he's failed. Well, I shouldn't say failed, but he hasn't been able to find that for whatever reason.
So when's the movie rights gonna pop up and we're gonna get a movie on Netflix about Red Hot Chili Peppers?
It probably won't be too long. I mean, I feel like the status quo used to be that you at least wait for a person to pass before you make a movie about them. But we've recently with the Elton John thing, and I feel like we're making biopics about everybody under the sun. So why wait,
I really, it would be so cool to see that. I hope they wouldn't do it as a biopic. you know,
Do it,
I
Doc.
think I hope they don't do that. I think they would do and hope they would do something more, probably a little more artsy, a little more avant-garde. And it would probably be, you know, for better or for worse, I think it would be very like California centric, you
Mhm.
know. I think it would be very connected into that because it's too important to the band. You know, and I do want to say I think that's one of the reasons why I think it's still so easy to relate to him, you know, is because he's continued to have those struggles, you know, because I do think he's a relatable sort of character in his songwriting, you know. But I would hope that it would touch on that. You know, I would hope it would touch on all those things. But because the story of their guitar player they grew up with, went to high school with, dying, you know, has been talked about. Everybody knows about that. That seeps its way other side, you know. I yell and tell it that it's not my friend. I tear it down, then it's born again. I mean, that always seeps its way into the songwriting, is the death of his best friend. So you know, that would also probably end up playing a role, but they'd have to do it in a way that wasn't exploitative or just like thrown out there for people to.
It's always tricky because, like, you know, you have things like Rocket Man, which feels very natural and very raw because, like, Elton John's not the kind of person who's going to pull punches about like all the shit that he did. And then you get Bohemian Rhapsody, which really feels weird because it's Brian May and Chad Taylor, Rod Taylor, who basically just did this whole movie, and at times they're just like, yeah, it was all Freddie's fault.
It's all Freddie Mercury's fault.
And
Have they
it's just
done
like,
a Cobain? Have they done a Cobain biopic yet?
No, right? You
I
know,
feel like that would come first before a Chili Peppers movie.
yeah. Well, you know, the funny and that makes sense. You know, there was an indie film. It wasn't a biopic though. There was like this indie film they did. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, Shane. Like it followed a guy who was supposed to be playing Cobain, like around his home, like days before he died. You know, so there's that. You know, it was
that's
like
uncomfortable.
yeah, I think
potentially awkward.
it was. I don't know. It sounds like Castaway, but Kurt Cobain at his house. Like that's what it sounded like. I mean, that's all I know. But there was that I think that came out like 20 years.
Sounds like a student film or something, yeah?
Well, and the nice thing at this point is
old IFC type of film.
They could just DH Flea and he could just play himself.
DH Flea? Yeah, well, no, absolutely.
They got the technology.
I mean, shit. They should just have these. Yeah, they should just have them do something.
I just did a video.
He would never be in a movie, though. I don't think. Well, then again, I take that back. I guess if you gave him enough money, he might do it.
For Shante.
For Shante.
Because I did a podcast for Scribe Magazine, top 10 films starring musicians. And number one's The Big Lebowski. Thanks, Flea.
Wait, who was he in The Lebowski?
He's one of the nihilists.
One of the nihilists.
No way.
It's from Autobahn.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to.
Money Lebowski. I had to cut off my girlfriend's toe.
He seems like he's always having so much fun. Like I don't really understand Flea on a fundamental. Like he's so good. And he's so solid, but he's also a complete nut job. Like I don't understand that man at all.
Like he was one of the antagonists in the last two Back to the Future movies. Like back in like the 80s into like the early 90s. So like he's been doing it ever since then. And like he was just in the Obi-Wan Kenobi show.
Really? Oh damn.
Yeah. Yeah, he was like some kind of bounty hunter who kidnaps child Leia.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That is dark, yeah.
That is dark.
Well, you would think, except the scene is like Benny Hill in the woods. It's like a bunch of doofuses trying to chase down a 10-year-old girl. It's like, they might as well have had that music in the background because that's stupid.
Okay.
But you would think it was dark. But
you know, and you know, you could say, I have to say, you know, all the things you're talking about with him, like being in films and being in the eye of the culture in other ways. You could, you know, they say the same thing about Lars Ulrich from Metallica. Say what you want about Metallica. Like, if it wasn't for Lars Ulrich, Metallica would not be Metallica. If it wasn't for Flea, the Chili Peppers would not be the Chili Peppers. They might, you know, like they could have gotten someone and they would have been a band, but they wouldn't, I don't think that they would have had, he's the engine really, you know, because he's proven that yes, Frusciante can leave, they could still exist. They could still go on tour. They could still put out albums that are pleasing to people's ears. You know, they're always going to get criticism when Frusciante leaves because he's such an essential part of their sound, but he is the engine, and they don't go. I don't think Anthony would have kept going if Flea ever left the band. He's that important to the band.
I do find it interesting bands where like that, like quote unquote engine of the band is not the lead singer.
Yeah.
And
like the Who. Look, remember the Who, you know the Who, you know.
Yeah, because like, well, because like, you know, you have Pete Townsend, you have Keith Moon, who
right.
like when he passed away, like that was like a big thing. And like even Led Zeppelin, they wouldn't even go on after John Bonham passed away.
Right.
They're like, nope, can't do it.
Just thinking about that, like, yeah, you could easily replace. I feel bad for drummers, and then I thought about John Bonham, and I thought about Keith Moon, because I thought about like, could you just get rid of Chad Smith? Once again, I guess you could.
Only if you get Will Ferrell to replace them. So nobody knows the difference.
Right. I think that's a tough question. In the case of the Who and Zeppelin, the answer is no. You really are not the same without that person.
Well,
because they were such a big part of the creation. And you know, so as I say that, Mike Portnoy leaves Dream Theater, and they're still making records. And you know, their top songs are still from when Portnoy was in the band, you know, but it's one of those things like, yes, you can continue as a band. It's just not going to be the same. It's
well,
not.
You know, you have bands like AC/DC who their lead singer died and then just they became even bigger. But, you know, if you don't have Angus, I don't think that's working.
It's a different incarnation though, right?
Yep.
It's a different, and it just shows that how important the people, how important the people are, you know, in a group, in these groups. Because it's a small group. It's a small group of human beings making this music, and their fingerprints are all over it. You take one of those people out, you can call it the same thing, but it's a different incarnation.
Well, I feel like with Red Hot Chili Peppers, the bass is so important to their sound. And like, if you didn't have Flea in it, like, it had a different bass player, I know.
There are different funk bass players. There are different funk guitar players, but it's not just funk. I mean, that's the thing. They took and stole and borrowed and, you know, grabbed from all these different places to become like what they are. And that's what I loved about alternative rock, you know, like even the alternative rock bands that I don't love. Like I love that there was a freedom in there. You know, we talk about Chris Cornell and two Jameses for the price of one. You know, like, you know, Soundgarden and these different Alice in Chains, like one song, Smashing Pumpkins, I'm not a huge fan of the Pumpkins, but all the different types of songs they got to do, but it's the same band, you know, and I've probably talked about that on this pod before. That is so important to me. It's important to me, or was important to me when I was doing original music. That was my whole thing, was I want to be able to play different types of songs, but I want us to sound like the same band every time we play a song. Like that just, to me, is beautiful. It's like the ultimate freedom. And it takes a lot of work, I think, to attain that, get to a place where other people will go, yeah, that's the Chili Peppers. I know what that ice cream flavor is, you know. I know that. So,
but I guess at this point, do we have any other thoughts that we want to share about Californication or Red Hot Chili Peppers?
I mean, we could go on. We could go on for a while. I agree that like Flea and Kiedis are probably, those are the recognizable voices in a band that you can't take away. We could talk about like what it is about them that is so California. I can't really put my finger on it, but
Yeah.
I mean, we could also, I don't know, we could go on for a while, but
Well,
no, I'll leave Alex to give the last word.
I'm sorry, because you know, you could just leave me here with keep recording, Shane.
Well, have a good night. I'll see you in the morning.
I'll keep going.
Just don't tell him you're going to stop the recording. Let him keep going.
I think that I hope that the California thing, I think unfortunately the California thing turns some people off, turns some people away, because not everybody identifies with it. Not everybody wants to like wave that flag. I met people in California who weren't about that, by the way. I met people in California who didn't like the Chili Peppers for the same reason, because they didn't want it shoved down their throats, And
how do you feel about the Beach Boys?
Good question. I don't know. I mean, for the most part, they wanted something different. They wanted something edgy or different or avant-garde or weird. That was the big thing out there. They wanted something weird, I found, and the Chili Peppers were too straight. How ironic, because when they started, they were not straight. They were anything but straight. So the Chili Peppers became the how do you say, they became the authority in a lot of ways. They became the New York Yankees. No,
I get that. Can you guys hear me still?
Yes.
I get that, but like they're so much more multifaceted and musically competent than like the LA punk scene, for example, or Motley Crue was doing like a lot of the same, living the same kind of lifestyle that these guys were like through the 80s. You know what I mean?
Hey, so, they got a Netflix movie.
I get that them being so successful and kind of becoming commercial now.
Right.
Yeah, because like
you're starting to cut out on us, Jim.
But while Jim's coming back in, I do find it very interesting. Like, obviously, we all have our bands from where we're from, because, like, New Jersey has their bands. Just like, we want the boss. It's like New Jersey loves Bruce Springsteen.
And the kids are not about Bruce Springsteen. I was not about Bruce Springsteen until I got older, a little bit older.
Bon Jovi.
And a lot of people don't like Bon Jovi,
I would disown Bon Jovi if I could, as a native New Jerseyan, but I'll keep the boss.
But as an Italian American from New Jersey, obviously we got Frankie Valli, because we are indeed Jersey boys.
I think that's a dangerous thing about like just labeling somebody as this is a Jersey person, a California person. I think that's Nirvana, that was Seattle. I've heard people say, yeah, grunge, that was that Seattle sound, and it's like, well, now it's everybody's sound. It was a sound that people heard and went, whoa, that's different. I want to be a part of that. And that's a really special thing. And I think what's important about doing these album reviews is to really kind of really put your ears on and listen to the whole album and see where it was stewed up, see where it was created. And obviously the backdrop, this album doesn't sound the same. I'm glad you brought that up, Jim. Like it's not the same if it's done in Florida or Minnesota, right? Like it's not going to have the same sound. There's obviously an impact from California on this album, and I hear it and I feel it. Shit, I don't know if I would have spent the time out there that I did without this album. Like it really had that much of an impact. So it is important, but so many people have heard and felt what that thing is, and whether it's in the desert, on top of a mountain, like it's something that you can, like, that antenna, that came from a desert or that came from the Hollywood Hills, reached so many people. And that's a really cool thing. There are people in Europe who like make tribute videos to Bruce Springsteen, people who grew up in like Iceland, who
The movie Blinded by the Light.
Yeah.
This kid from England. Yeah.
He's from England. He was an Indian kid from England.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, like, that's.
Wait, what movie is this?
Blinded by the Light.
It's a good
Blinded
movie.
by the Light.
Yeah. And that Chili Peppers reached 1991 red Ford F-150 driving around in New Jersey. And that's why I listen to Californication all the time.
There you go. And that's the other reason why well, I'm not going to end it on that note. I don't want to stand on that soapbox, but like it's just important. Yeah, you know where I'm going. Like, it's important. Support. We need original bands, new artists need support. They need that antenna to extend so that we can hear them, and that's why I do still listen to the radio. I listen to 90.5 The Night, and I do hear like some new stuff, or some old stuff that happens to be new to me.
Yeah, like I know I'm actively, because like I'm trying to find websites where they track new albums coming up and stuff like that, and like I have a playlist in my notes of, like, new albums coming out that I could check out.
Nice.
And like I'm trying to be, because like I spent most of my life listening to music that was not new.
Same here.
And to be honest, I'm not very hip with new music, and I listen to some The Weeknd. I have a few Doja Cat songs that I like, but like it's still, for me, I still like hard rock and heavy metal music, and you have to seek out that stuff because rock music today is just whatever other band sounds like Tame Impala now on all the alternative stations.
But it's crazy though. If you get out into your local scene, you'll see people doing this version of hardcore. It's not quite as heavy, but it's still really loud and aggressive. You'll see these punk bands. You see people who are trying to mix jazz with, EDM, and like, there's like, I think everyone's trying to like figure it out by just taking two or three things and meshing them together. I don't know if that's an answer. I just think I think that's where people's brains are at. I think they've grown up with a combination of whatever gets thrown at them from the 90s and the Jimi Hendrix era and like the post 2000s era. And so they're just like mashing them together.
Or you could be Greta Van Fleet and just be Led Zeppelin.
Don't get me started on Greta Van Fleet. Don't mention their name in my presence.
Oh, but I love my
started Greta Van Fleet cover bands.
You mean a Led Zeppelin cover band?
No, it's going to be a Greta Van Fleet tribute, and we're going to take all the credit away from Led Zeppelin.
Isn't that what Greta Van Fleet really?
It's not like Led Zeppelin lacks any credit. Like I'm not mad about that, but
that's true.
They're obviously talented guys, and they could I just want them to do something that's not carbon copied from the Led Zeppelin sound.
I know, but here's the thing: like we might have not heard of them if they didn't do exactly that.
Well,
like do something, cut your hair, do something different,
I know the reason I know who Greta Van Fleet is because that Ford v Ferrari trailer where Highway Tune came on. I'm like, oh, I've never heard this Led Zeppelin song before.
Unreleased Zeppelin, all right.
And then I'm just like, I looked up, I'm like, who the hell's Greta Van Fleet?
And you know what though? I don't think anybody can do that for it in the mold of the Chili Peppers. Like it's you don't just sit down and play Flea's bass riffs. You know what I mean? It's not that easy to rip off the Chili Peppers.
Well, that's the funny thing is that you know, and I'll speak vaguely about this because, you know what, actually, I'm going to speak as vaguely about that as possible. I was surprised when I was mentioning them as an influence that for some people that was a turnoff, because I didn't feel like that many people had used that as like a huge influence. You know, I didn't feel like, you know, like that many people used it. So when I was trying to like make music in that spirit, it felt like I was like the bad guy. Like, you know, I don't know why. Because, you know, that was like, of course they were an influence. Like, you know, look at the way I'm talking, look at my tattoo. Like, of course they were an influence for the same reasons, you know, like there was just so much multifaceted. There's so much, you know, they're so dynamic. There's something so dynamic about the way they do these things. And I couldn't help but be inspired by it. And of course it's going to find its way, you know, into my music. You know what I mean? But yeah, I don't hear a whole lot of people. I know, like, it's weird. Like, I remember that band Faith No More, and they did that song Epic, which I really love that song. He always reminds me of Anthony Kiedis's delivery on that song. That's the only one that comes to mind where I go, that sounds kind of like Anthony Kiedis. Can you see it? Feel it? Hip as today. If you can't, then it doesn't matter anyway. Like, it has that, you know, what I got to give it to you, that punchy, you know, rap thing. And so, like, it's really weird that that's like the only example I can think of, you know, from that. But that was like around the same time that the Chili Peppers got big. It's not like a lot of people are trying to sound like them. I think that for Shantae's guitar tone and style and like mad scientist thing influenced guitar players, because I could hear the simplicity of like some of the stuff he did on commercials and from different bands and you know, stuff like that. You know, the very
definitely
somber sounding minor key, you know, simple voicings, you know, like you definitely heard that. And I didn't know, I was like, maybe they were for Shantae fan. I don't know. It's, you know, but it's one of those things that like no one has been able to try and just be like them or be them. And I think if somebody tried to do it, it would be an absolute failure. You know, there's been quite a few decades since Led Zeppelin. So now a band like Greta Van Fleet can come with all this, you know, record company support and obviously very talented dudes, you know, take that away from them. But there's an obvious, like, we're going to punch this ticket and we're going to punch it every time, you know, and that's what's pissing you off, is that there's nothing, it's very one-dimensional, you know, is what it is. And so I think if somebody came along and like actually sounded just like them or like them, I think it would take like another 20 or 25 years. You know, so there's plenty of tribute bands. There's plenty of Red Hot Chili Pepper tribute bands. You know, I've heard of those and met people who are, you know, involved in that sort of stuff. And that never interested me, you know.
Which, I guess like the last thing that I want to add is, like, I know I mentioned a couple of times listening to like Philly radio stations, and there's 104.5, which is alternative. And basically listening to that now, it's like 50 different versions of Tame Impala. And then Red Hot Chili Peppers. So it's basically like, and then a little bit of grunge thrown in there. So like, you know, there's like STP on there and stuff like that. But like, really, it's everybody trying to capture this sound because like Kevin Parker like found something, and then playing Chili Peppers. And
there's a lot of War on Drugs too, right? Or is that more XPN's territory? Because I know the War on Drugs has been very successful out of Philadelphia. They're very proud of him, but nice. that might be more NPR territory. I'm not sure.
Yeah, because like generally, if I'm listening to the radio, I'm either listening to MMR or 1029 WMGK, which is just the classic rock station. And oh God, they had Nirvana on it the other day. I'm like, I don't like this. But you know,
my last word is deep cuts. Chili Peppers, Nirvana, Territorial Pissings, freaking deep cuts.
We're adults here.
You got to get into the deep cuts. I don't know who's out there, man, but deep cuts.
Gotta listen to the whole albums. Start to finish. But it's my pick next, right? I'm pretty sure.
I believe so. Yeah, I think you're right.
So I have decided on Brothers in Arms from Dire Straits. And there's going to be some finger-picking good music for us to talk about next time.
Right on.
Excellent.
Thank you, Alex and Jim, for coming on and talking about some Chili Peppers. I know Alex was very excited about it, and I was definitely excited about talking about Californication. But thank all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.